All right. Yeah, Luxembourg. Let's talk about Luxembourg though, because I absolutely love hidden gems. This idea of these hidden gems. As the crowds get real intense in the places, they're a hot topic. But if you look at, there's an article, National Geographic came with an article recently where they mentioned that using satellite data, they tracked that 80% of tourists go to 10% of tourist sites. 80% go to 10% of the places. And that's fine. There are very good reasons to go to those places. But the problem is if you start thinking that the not famous places are somehow like inadequate, then you've fallen into a trap. So let's not do that. So we'll let folks go to the big places. I go to, Paris, London, Rome too. But places like Luxembourg City are worth getting to know about. So we'll hop through just a couple of them. So I know it's a little bit unfamiliar, but we'll go through them. Here's my tours for this year, next year. Now, Luxembourg. What is Luxembourg? What's there? It's a nice place. You see a lot of pictures like this, hopefully not as distorted as when I took this about a month ago. It's in a river valley, so you have kind of different levels of the city on the top and then working its way down. So it's just a fantastic place to walk around. Bring your camera if you want. Beyond that, the country itself is just gorgeous. It's just the most pastoral paradise of a country you've ever seen. It's great hiking and camping. One of the things I really like about it is they've made all of their public transit in the entire country free for everyone all the time. So if you're in Luxembourg, like if you take the tour and you hang out, or if you just go there, you can take a local train that stops in every town, and you just go visit all these perfect little villages. They're absolutely gorgeous to go to. It also had the horrors of the Battle of the Bulge in the Hurtgenwald, which are part of the history, but we're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on these beautiful places like this one, like Clairvaux, that kind of thing. Actually, we'll talk about the capital. But beyond that, what else is it known for? It's one of 4 institutional seats for the European Union. So the highest judicial authority in the EU is in Luxembourg, the European Court of Justice. One of the things that makes it an important country, and we'll talk about how that happened. How does a tiny little country like Luxembourg end up with that kind of thing? What else is it known for? It's quite wealthy. That chart on the right there, Luxembourg has been the wealthiest country in the world for, I think, 9 years running. If you do GDP per capita, depending on which measurements, it's been really at the top for quite a long time. It also has the second highest number of Michelin star restaurants per capita. Only Japan is higher. That's Yves Rabelais. He's one of the celebrity chefs there. It also is the world's last remaining sovereign Grand Duchy. We talk about the Grand Duchy of Tuscany sometimes. They're all gone because modernity, except Luxembourg, is still a Grand Duchy. And it all kind of makes sense. So as you go through it, it'll make sense. But you got to do the history real quick. So how far back do you want to go? They have their Paleolithic artifacts, of course. Caesar showed up with Romans. Let's not do that. It's too long. Then you have Charlemagne was not far away, all of that. After Charlemagne, it splits into a couple countries, and you get the first of our really important guys. There was a guy named Siegfried, Colonel Siegfried, and he came along, and he did 2 really significant things. First, he married a mermaid. If you heard of Melusine, that was Siegfried's wife. We'll talk about it on tour. We'll get a big liter of beer and we'll talk about it. Well, for now, we'll skip past, because he did something else. He bought a hilltop, kind of a promontory there, and he built a castle on it. Now, that's not particularly unusual. These lords all do that. But this one mattered. And why? Because if you look at where Luxembourg is, right in between France and Germany, that has been a pretty significant place for about 1,000 years of conflict. You have the Germanies, the different kingdoms up there, the Franks, all the kingdoms down there. Luxembourg is right between the Rhine and the Meuse rivers. So that promontory where he built his castle was extremely important strategically for control of that whole area. So this is what he built. They called it Luxembourg, something like that. Luxembourg became Luxembourg. You can kind of see where it all comes from over the course of 1,000 years. Now, they kept invading, conquering, reconquering, defending for a long time. But the good news is we are alive in arguably the best period in human history. So while this has been shot at for 1,000 years, when I was there a little while ago and took this picture, that's it. On the right-hand side of that photo is the vestiges of what you see on the left-hand side of this one, of the original castle. His original castle is now kind of the Bach casemates. They were used for centuries to defend this area. And it's pretty impressive to get to go there and walk around and check everything out. With control of that, the House of Luxembourg became quite significant in European history. They have 4 Holy Roman Emperors. Their family became kings all the way down to Hungary and Croatia, all of that stuff. And then every time you get the French conquer the Germans, conquer the Spanish, conquer the Austrians, and back to the French again, everybody adds a layer of fortifications because nobody wants to have to fight for it ever again. As a result of that, you just have more fortifications and castles in this one area than almost anywhere else. I know the Loire Valley and the Rhine have their reputations too, but this one city is just phenomenal. If you're a castle buff, if you like these things, you've heard of Vauban, the Marquis de Vauban. He was the Marshal of France under the Sun King, under Louis XIV. He came here and built just an astonishing array of fortifications. And one of the things I really like about Luxembourg is they've done a great job making their history accessible now. So they have 3 different self-guided walks you can take that divide the kind of the core of the city into 3 different things. One of them, the Vauban Circular Walk, you start at those Bach casemates from old Count Siggy. You walk down across the Alzette River on one of Vauban's old fortifications. You walk actually on it to cross the river and go up on the hill opposite. One last note on this one, if you look at the ridge line there in the upper right, there's that kind of white and black thing sticking out. That's a sky elevator. You take the elevator all the way up it, get an amazing view out over the valley there. But then once you cross over the river, you go over to the other end, and this is just the most panoramic city ever. So you get to walk on these cool fortifications like this. You can see all the way back to the Queen Charlotte Bridge back there in the background, all the way around through the front. But in addition to these vistas, it's just a beautiful place to go for a walk. Now, does that photo look like you're a few minutes from the center of one of Europe's most significant cities? I like my parks, I like my Bois de Boulogne, things, but that's remarkable. You're moments away from being in the center of a major European capital city, but you just get to walk through forest. It's absolutely beautiful. Get up to the top, you get more fortifications. There's a great sign in there about the sister kind of relationship between Luxembourg and Romania. Oddly enough, little did I know, I was starting to be part of a family that already existed. But in the background, I put this picture in because in the background, you can see those tall buildings. That's modern Luxembourg because they have big hotels and conference centers and big kind of thriving financial stuff over there. Right in between them, you can just kind of see there's another castle back there, another fortress that's not ruined, that has an amazing museum in it about all of Luxembourg's history. And then right behind there, you have this incredible fine art museum. So all of these things that we love about going to Europe, the old buildings, the culture, the history, the art, it's all in Luxembourg just like crazy. But if you get back to kind of the story as I jam through 1,000 years of history really quick, they kept building up the city. It becomes known as Gibraltar of the North because nobody could take it. It becomes so important, it becomes a problem. As the great powers kind of move into the modern era, nobody wants a really strong, invincible city or city-state in the middle of it. So they gradually kind of broke it up, took pieces away from it, gave a chunk to France after they beat the Spanish in 1635. The Prussians get a piece after they form a country, and then after Napoleon, they lost a chunk to them. And then when Belgium became a country, 1839, I think, they got to keep some of the French sections. So it got to be a little bit smaller. And then they made a really crucial shift. No longer being a big political power, they started being an economic power and an ally. They became part of the German customs union, and they kind of industrialized, became a big steel producer in time. And they learned that you can do really well making money as a producer instead of bleeding and shooting as a conqueror kind of thing. And it's worked out quite well for them. But you hit the 20th century. 20th century is a little rough for Europe. Spoiler alert. Germany conquered Luxembourg in both world wars. The first one, they were pretty benign. They didn't really do much. It's a reminder of what a massive difference there is between the 2 world wars. They're grouped together, but they're deeply different. Because in the second one, when the Nazi occupation took Luxembourg, they were Nazis. guess I don't need to explain that. They were a little vicious. Holocaust, killing people, murdering, all of the bad things. And the Luxembourgers joined a lot of resistance. They were ostensibly neutral, but you had thousands of people from this very small country joining the resistance. In memorial to the people who died in that conflict and all other ones, they built this war memorial with the Golden Lady, the Gale Fra, on top there. It's one of the famous kind of monuments that you see in Luxembourg. And you can see behind there, Luxembourg, not in February when I was there, it looks a lot better. It's very green. And the other reason I included this is underneath that bridge is the Alzette River. It runs all the way through Luxembourg. Because it's a river and it could flood, they haven't built down there. So right through the middle of this beautiful city, you have just this fantastic park that runs right through almost the whole thing. You can just explore all these sites, go down by the river there, take a sandwich if you want and sit in this beautiful park by the river. It's really quite remarkable. The other thing, this World War II history really left its mark in, well, everyone, say humanity, certainly the Western world and Luxembourg. When I was looking for hotels for the tour that I'm taking there, I went by one and outside noticed this plaque on the left. Now, I don't know how your French is. Maybe it's better than mine. But that's about the 1930s when the owner of that hotel used it to provide refuge for Jewish refugees from World War II. And then it talks about after they conquered Luxembourg in 1940 and all the awful stuff that happened. So I had to go inside there and found a beautiful hotel. Extremely well run, super comfortable, tons of style, super classy, great manager, and it has a tapas restaurant just for bonus. So that's where we're staying if you come on the tour. But it's just kind of indicative of the level of just kind of class and character that you find in Luxembourg. It's really a pretty special place. To kind of finish off some of its story, though, after making steel in the 1970s stopped being such a great plan to run a country on, so they shifted to financial services and basically high tech stuff, which has done quite well for them. They became, well, let's be honest, they became one of these refuges where people stash money, ill-gotten money. So Kim Jong-il and Amazon, two rather tax stealing entities there have, well, not Kim Jong-il. They have stashed a ton of money in Luxembourg. And now that's one of the hot topics in the country as the world tries to move away from tax havens. But in the end, despite all of that and being a very relevant place today, they did this amazing feat where they have combined that amazing history looking backward with a beautiful present tense and an important, vital, vibrant present tense to just make a city that's great to walk around. You can fill all these little brasseries there. I took this because it has the flag and there's a beautiful lion on the building in the back, but you can't really see it. But it's just a great place to walk around. It's also a great place to eat because you have all of that French culinary cuisine, the gastronomy, and the kind of Germanic solidity. You have just amazing food everywhere you go and great museums. This was the Natural History Museum, which was free. It was just a ton of fun to walk around in. And I left, it's kind of a chaotic outlay, but I left that bigger one on the upper left because you walk in and there's a caveman sitting on the couch just waiting for you to welcome you in. And then all the other interesting exhibits. That just showed the kind of Luxembourgian like dedication to information and quality, but also fun. Because the end result is you have a city that's beautiful, fascinating, and it ends up being kind of almost too good to be true. Because has anybody seen an ad for Luxembourg? Probably not. They don't need tourism. They don't reject it, but they certainly don't need it. So they're kind of under the radar there in the middle. And you end up with a city that, they were possessed by the Holy Roman Empire, the Habsburgs, and the French for so long. It feels to me like walking, it feels like Paris without the crowds, without the cost, without the craziness, without the Parisians, let's be honest. I mean, I'm sorry. Je vous aime, mes amis, mais mon Dieu, the French are not always super easy. But if you go through Luxembourg, it's welcoming. It's a beautiful place, tons of history. And I can't wait to take a group there. I can't wait to go back. And hopefully you guys agree with me and are curious about this hidden gem, not getting that 80% of visitors.